welcome, welcome. We are so excited to be here today because we have lots of requests, and some we've kind of done in other videos, but this one we had not done, and this was a request to show how to line your pants pattern. So you know what, I thought about it, we've not shown that anywhere. So we're going to show you. This is a great industrial method. There's several, but this is my favorite that I'm going to show you, and it is on how to line your pants. You don't necessarily need to have a pant lining. I'm going to go through the pattern work first and then the sewing as to how to get it just right. Alright, so we're going to focus on the sewing machine today, and I've got the patterns here. If your pattern has a pocket, when you're cutting the lining, you want to put that pocket piece behind and cut all as one. Linings don't have pockets, they don't have darts, they don't have pleats, they don't have any of those things. So if you have a pocket, put that behind. That's change number one. Then I'm using one of silhouette patterns. You'll have a fly front assembly. You're not going to make any changes to that, and you're going to have this thinner piece, and that thinner piece is what goes behind, and I'll show it to you. You're going to cut it an inch shorter and a seam allowance 3/8 of an inch narrower. So this is the portion that I actually cut off of my lining. Everything else on the lining is going to be cut exactly the same. So I've got a front, or however it is, it's cut exactly the same. But if you notice here, this is the little piece that I took away, and I used the piece that I had in the pattern and cut it away, and then I just curved it a little bit right there at the curve, and the reason I did that is it's easier to stitch a curve than it is. And you're taking that out of the right front. Let me show you. So here's my pant that I'm going to line. This fly is on the right side in women's. In men's it'd be opposite, but we're talking about a women's here. If you're talking about men's, you'll just completely reverse it. But this side is the right side of the pant. If you notice when you unzip it, the way the fly front, and we've done a fly front before, you can review that to make sure you know how. This portion is the extension, or it's called the zipper assembly, and it's actually into the pant. So when you go to line it, we're actually going to pick it up right here, and nothing needs to be changed with the lining. But if you notice on this side, that would be the side you top stitch, that piece actually folds back in, and that's the portion that you're going to cut away. So this cutaway is going to be on one of the front pieces, and it's going to be on the right front if you're doing women's pants, and again, men's would be just the opposite. So again, all I did was curve that out just so that it would be a little easier to sew rather than square it. And then when I sewed the whole pant together, crotch, everything, this is just a mini version, so it's a little shorter than what you would have. And then when you get to this inseam right here, don't stitch all the way. Give yourself a little seam allowance because you're going to sew this portion first. And all I'm going to do now is start sewing, and I'm going to do right sides together. So I'm going to turn the pant the wrong side, because the wrong side, actually it's wrong sides together. I said right sides together, it's wrong sides together. And I'm going to put this inside the pant. Takes a little bit of jostling here, and once I get it settled I'll show you. You're going to put the front to the front, the back to the back, and just tuck it inside. So the very first thing you do is you're going to sew the front of the pant to the zipper assembly. Now on the very last step, when you did the fly front, the very last step, remember this portion was free, you put it behind the zipper and you bar tacked it. You're going to not do that step yet. You're going to actually sew the lining in first, and then you're going to go ahead and do the bar tacking. Now when you sew this, what you're going to do is I've got the wrong side of the lining against the wrong side of the fabric. This zipper assembly is free to move out of the way, and I'm going to flip it. I'm going to flip the lining to where I can simply sew this portion. You'll have a little bit of, even after you've done your top stitching, you're going to have a little bit of seam allowance left, and that's what you're going to stitch in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pin it, because there's a few things in pinning it that I kind of want to show you just before I sew it. So notice that on this portion of the pant, we got a lot here in the way to see, this is going to curve around, and I'm going to finish off this raw edge by sewing from this side and just barely tucking it under, and then this portion will come up and sew on this side. we'll sew on this side, and then I'll show you step by step. But the first thing we're going to do, it's beautiful when it's done, is I'm going to go ahead and pin this. Now the reason I'm pinning it is because when I have this section cut away, because it's a long kind of L-shaped thing, it's really easy, just show you right there, it's really easy to not have this stitched exactly in the right place. So what I have to do, and notice the bottom of that is free, the bottom of my zipper assembly is free, is this I should actually pin, not that I'm going to sew it just yet, but I should actually pin it to the top so that I don't, when I'm sewing this, I'm going to call it a U-shaped section, when I'm sewing this section I don't pull this portion too far down. It's very easy to do if I don't have this section pinned. So it doesn't take a lot of pins, but just put a couple pins there in place, and what that will do is it'll indicate to me where this side has to stop as I work around from the opposite side, and that's going to be really, really helpful to do that. So now we're going to pull all the lining in. I've got the right side against the right side of the pant. I know approximately where it should end, and I'm going to make my first stitch. Okay, and it doesn't have to be pretty. You want it to be flat and nice, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, certainly no one's going to look at your crotch, and no one's going to look at the inside of your crotch, so you're a pretty safe bet that we're going to be okay. Notice I'm just kind of working this around to where it stops at the place that I want it to. Very easy to do. Alright, so now we're going to take this portion of the pant, we're going to pull it out of the way, and I'm just going to sew on that little edge that I have, and basically I've got right sides together. You're not going to be able to actually see me stitching, but that's okay. You're going to understand this because I'll show it to you right after I stitch. Notice I put my pins facing up so that I can easily pull them out as I'm stitching down. And what I'm stitching now is on that little piece that flipped back, not the zipper assembly side, I'm on the other side. And you're just going to work this until it's nice and flat, and I'll show it to you in just a second. Make sure you're not stitching through anything on the underside. Okay, so now you can see that that's going to be beautiful inside the pant, and it just completely picks up. I didn't stitch anything on this side. You notice that's exactly as it was. And now I'm ready to stitch this side. Now remember, the crotch is already done, so I don't even have to worry about that. But now what I'm going to do is, and again, the only reason I put those pins there was so that I would know where this bottom of this fly needed to be. But now keep in mind the lining is completely free all the way around. I'm going to pull it to this side, and where I sewed the zipper assembly onto the pant initially, that's where I'm going to turn, and I'm going to stitch this now. And you can see that actually as I stitch this, the zipper assembly is in between that lining, and I'm just going to stitch right continuous. So this is the last stitch and my lining will be done. So I'm going to turn that to the side, and I'm just going to position it to where I can keep going right into my lining. It's very easy to do when you just understand what the pattern work, what has to be cut away and what has to be left. But other than that, it's real simple to do. Alright, so notice as I stitched along here, and I picked up right into that lining piece where it came from the other side so that I enclosed my lining. And now when I look inside, this now is outside. You can see my lining is completely covering. Now what I'll do is finish that last step of that fly, and I'll bring it back here and I'll tack somewhere right in here. Same place that you would tack before. That's just to keep the fly to the back of the zipper and cover it up completely. Then what I'm going to do is go ahead and put your lining all the way in. You're just going to sew those first two pieces, and as I go around I'm just going to give myself a little bit of pinning just so you can kind of keep track where I'm at. Just going to go all the way around. You're pushing your lining to the inside, and keeping the edge of the pant and the lining the same. You can see this is just beautiful. I mean, and you know, we should be aware that lined pants are coming back. I mean, sure enough, just as we think yoga pants are the big rage and they're always going to be yoga pants, Armani showed lined pants for fall. So it's kind of exciting that you know, we're going to see them again. And they're beautiful. There's nothing nicer than a lined pair. I don't need to do anything for the fit. I don't need to change it at all. I can use the exact same pattern. Lining is very thin. The only thing I would recommend is don't do any kind of pleats, don't do any kind of tucks. Those will all, instead of doing tucks or pleats, when I have a lining, all I'll want to do is just do a little fold over. And don't do the lining fold over on top of a dart. Space them, offset each one. It doesn't matter where the lining actually is in the dart, so don't put them on top of one another. Kind of space them so that the inside is completely flat. Alright, so there I have it. There's the inside of my pant, so you can see how beautiful the lining is. And then to finish it off, you're just going to finish off with your waistband. And that's no different than any method. The only thing you're going to do is include both layers when you come in with your waistband, and you just edge stitch in place all the way around, and that finishes off that beautiful band. And this is actually the outside, but I wanted you to see that how you just put both layers in there. No different. Notice the lining doesn't go to the zipper assembly. It starts at the edge, so that when I come in to do my zipper, it will do just like it always has. There's no difference in how it's sewn at all. It's just both layers are tucked up in there. So just a really great way to line pants. Absolutely beautiful. At the very bottom of your pants, what you're going to do is just connect the two legs at both side seams. Connect the out seam and the inseam of the lining. And it doesn't matter if you top stitch it. Usually it's done with a little lengthening of thread. You could do it with a little piece of ribbon. Doesn't make any difference, but the lining will hang completely free. The lining is woven, so make sure it's cut on grain so you don't get any twisting issues, and it'll absolutely be gorgeous. So there you have it. Let's get some lined pants going. And of course this month we're focusing on pants, so it wouldn't hurt you all to just get a pair of pants and line them just for fun, just to see how beautiful they are. Thanks for watching, and happy sewing!